Josiah, I think it's safe to say that the country's a little angry these days. We're a little worked up about everything. There are strong opinions on pretty much every topic. As someone who regularly works with folks who have strong opinions, not always in alignment with your own, do you have any thoughts about division or disunity in the country and just in general?
You briefly touched on like picking any topic. You know, right now there's a lot of a political divide. But even that, you know, so that might be one big topic or one big theme, but then it, you know, kind of runs down, trickles into families, interpersonal relationships. And what started maybe as a difference in, you know, political affiliation or those types of things, you know, then dovetails into all kind of other things, and people start to get tense and argumentative about other things going on in their life. So yeah, no, I think the biggest thing to navigate through is the interpersonal relationships. So with a very broad brush, the divisions and tense nature of our culture is like people sound off on social media, on Twitter, X, I mean, any platform. And that's kind of like everyone has a whole bunch of courage behind a keyboard, you know, but the minute that there's, you know, interpersonal conversations or family, then it's like, wow, this just got real, you know, in a lot of ways. I guess the one thing that I would call out first and would be curious your guys' thoughts as well is this whole idea of, so we're saying division, right? And I think division is what I would say is like the shadow side of peace. So if you know, if we're talking the opposite of division, so what is that? So I would venture to say it would be peace. And so then I started doing a little bit more study into peace, and of course, you know, Scripture, the Bible talks a lot about peace, of course. But I researched, I believe it's Aristotle.
Ooh.
Is quoted by saying that peace isn't the absence of conflict, but that it's justice and harmony and understanding. I thought that's pretty good.
Yeah.
How else would you define peace? You know, if we're saying that peace is kind of the solution.
Well, peace is the goal. I don't know if it's a solution. I mean, it's what you desire, but you can't implement peace. You can't force peace. So it has to be the end goal as opposed to the process. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? You can't piece your way to something. You have to do something to get to peace.
Yeah, it seems like people have, when they engage in the interactions that facilitate disagreement or a challenging of their identity and all of those sorts of things, the issue is, it seems like the intent from the outset. People don't realize they're going in when they have these conversations that end up leading to all this discourse that they were actually trying to change somebody's mind all of us, we don't understand how difficult it really is to change somebody's mind. So if we, I think in a simple sense, enter in those interactions, just assuming that you're not going to change that person's mind, and how does that change the groundwork to which wherever
Sure.
the conversation goes?
Yeah. I would even, not that I would argue, but I would just push back and say, like, going into those conversations is not about winning the argument at all. It's not even like, I just, you know, that active listening. So some of the premarital counseling that I do, Dante would know, about the whole section about communication and active listening, which, by the way, anytime I do premarital counseling or am honored to be asked for advice or pastoring, it's so humbling because you know some of the things to say, but then you look at your life and you're like, wow, I have a difficult time incorporating these things. I mean, same could be true. Not that I have to make the correlation, but same could be true with any sort of like health, you know, things like, which, by the way, thankful that each and every one of us practice what we preach when it comes to physical activity and nutrition and dietary supplements, you know. But yeah, so in premarital counseling, we'll talk about active listening, using a lot of like I statements as opposed to like you or accusatory statements. And then, I'll practice with couples, like repeating back what the other person, I hear you say, these types of things. So let me ask you this question. Is our culture past that point? So people can do the hard work. The hard work is going to counseling or therapy, doing the hard work of self-awareness, learning about your makeup, your personality type and all those things. But not everybody's going to do that. And so then are there times when a not a harsh response, but you're having a disagreement with somebody. You don't want it to lead to division, but there's also, something else there that needs addressed.
I find personally that when I am the most, for lack of a better term, triggered, when I in conflict and I get that feeling, that rush, it's generally when I feel insecure about the things I'm saying. I'm pretty sure, but I'm not certain. Or I think this, or I'm repeating the thing I heard from somebody that I really like, but I don't really know it for myself. And when I'm on that tenuous footing and I get challenged, that's when I start to get angry. But when I feel myself getting worked up, if I can, I always try to ask myself why it is that I'm getting worked up. And when the answer internally is because you don't know what you're talking about, that's when I usually try to go, hey, you know what? Can we take 5 so that I can step away, because I'm getting upset and I don't want to get upset. I want to know what's going on or whatever.
No, but I know for me in those situations when I'm feeling that way, I always have to just really think about empathy.
Right.
And so many of the times it's really just, maybe this person feels this way or is coming at it from this way because of what they feel and what their situation is, what their perspective is. So I know for me, that's a big thing to try to like focus on is maybe some of the source of this, maybe some of the details we can disagree on, but maybe what's some of the source of why this person is coming the way or feeling the way that they do.
Seeking to understand.
Yeah. I think it's odd too. Like we have more means of communication now.
Right.
But I think that in a certain way, it has fueled a lot of the division, because a lot of time, not only can you have conflict, but I think what's even more can be problematic is that you have the ability to access and to communicate with just who you want to. So people, I know we all have the tendency to get inside their own bubble, whether it's the cable news channel they watch. Now those are divided, and it's different accounts you follow, different people you follow. All those things give you this opportunity to kind of just reinforce your own bubble because you have all this access. When you would think communication brings us together, it can also have that opposite effect of just allowing people just to stay there,
Do you have a solution for society, or is society just hopeless?
The pastor in me, in the belief that that Jesus and his teachings are the answer for the world and the culture, then yeah, I think until people acknowledge that they are not their own God and that they are not living for their self, and then that would remove their level of pride and need to be right. That would introduce, a level of humility and meekness, where you're not looking for arguments and, you just kind of release all of that. And so you make yourself not God. You don't put yourself at center.
But it makes sense, because if it's not about you, then somebody else shooting their mouth off or being angry about God or whatever, you go, oh, that's not about me. That's about him, and he's big enough to handle it. So I don't have to take that personally. I can just be empathetic and feel for the person.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why, I certainly don't like to take apathetic responses to certain things that might divide people. But ultimately, I read throughout Scripture. We read in Scripture about how God's in control and justice is his. So if peace is not the absence of conflict, but peace is justice and harmony and all of those things, that's everything that God desires for his created world. Real quickly, I won't share it all, but Jesus in his Sermon on the Mount talks a lot about blessing those who persecute you, praying for your enemies, loving your enemies. And then Paul in the New Testament, he writes similarly to Romans, to the Christians who are in Rome. And in both of these contexts, I just thought it was so interesting given our current state of the world. But in both of these contexts in which he's writing, there was a lot of, so when Jesus speaks the Sermon on the Mount, there was a lot of popular religion, and people were starting to conflate their religion with the way that the government should be run. And they thought Jesus was going to come and be this military leader and overthrow this government. And Jesus is actually saying, like, no, love those who might persecute you or curse you, which is, like, again, antithetical to our world. And now it's like, wait, I'm supposed to do what? I'm not supposed to, like, fire back and yell back. And later, James, New Testament, about slow to speak, slow to anger, quick to listen. But yeah, so I think the Bible is full of principles that would help our world. So when you ask me about solutions or, for our culture, yeah, I think when people can do their best to be humble, get out of their own way, seek to understand and listen. And until then,
hold on.
Yeah. I don't know.